An emotional story of redemption, love, passion, and new beginnings. When the young cleaner, embarrassed, revealed something she had never experienced, the millionaire merely smiled, not mockingly, but with a tenderness that would change everything between them. Watch this story until the end, you'll be surprised by it. If you enjoy stories of love and romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. We post videos like this every day, continuing. Clara woke up at 4:30 in the morning, as always. Her alarm clock no longer needed to ring. Her body had adapted to that routine years ago. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed, rubbed her eyes and looked out the small bedroom window. Outside, London still slept under a blanket of cold fog that covered the cramped houses of Brixton. Her grandmother, Joanna, breathed slowly in the next room, a sound Clara had learned to listen to like music. Ever since heart medication had become part of the old woman's routine, that constant rhythm of night breathing was what gave Clara peace before heading out for another day of work. It meant that her grandmother was well, that she had made it through another night, that Clara still had a reason to wake up every day before the sun rose. She put on the navy blue uniform she religiously washed every night, tied her brown hair in a simple bun, and went to the small kitchen. She prepared weak coffee, the grounds had to last all week, and ate 2 slices of bread with margarine. She left coffee ready for her grandmother, along with her medicines organized in a small plastic bowl. "I'll be back at 6, Grandma," she murmured softly near the bedroom door, even though she knew Joanna was still asleep. It was a ritual. Daily promise Clara made to herself and to the woman who had raised her after her parents died in a bus accident when she was just 12 years old. The street was empty when Clara left home. She put on her headphones, a birthday gift her grandmother had managed to buy the previous year, and began the 40-minute walk to the bus stop. The music playing was always the same playlist, downloaded from a free website. Romantic pop ballads that kept her company during the lonely early mornings and helped her dream of a different life, at least during the commute. The bus arrived crowded, as always. Clara squeezed herself between workers who shared the same routine. Simple people going to clean, cook, take care of the homes and offices of a London that would wake up 2 hours later, with everything already ready and organized. She looked out the foggy window and thought about what she would do if she had studied. Maybe she'd be a nurse. She always liked taking care of people. Or maybe a teacher for small children. She had a way with children, Mrs. Louise from the corner always said, but these were thoughts for the bus ride. When she arrived at work, Clara transformed into the efficient, invisible employee everyone expected her to be. The Westminster Building was one of the most elegant commercial buildings in the Oxford Street area. 22 floors of mirrored glass, a marble lobby, and huge plants that Clara always admired when she arrived for her shift. She had worked for Sparkle Clean Solutions for 3 years, always the same hours, always the same route. Floors 15 to 22, which housed law firms, consultancies, and technology companies. Clara liked her job, even if no one understood how that was possible. There was something almost meditative in the routine of cleaning, organizing, leaving everything impeccable. And above all, she liked working alone. She didn't have to talk to anyone, didn't have to explain why she hadn't gone to college or why she lived in Brixton. She simply cleaned, listened to music softly on her headphones, and thought about life. It was on one of those Tuesday mornings that her routine encountered an unexpected interference. Clara was cleaning the elevator mirror on the 19th floor when the doors opened. Normally at that time, 7:30 in the morning, the offices were still empty. So she was startled when she saw a man standing there, clearly waiting to use the elevator. "Excuse me," he said with a deep, polite voice. Clara quickly stepped out of the elevator, holding her bucket and cleaning cloths, muttering an almost inaudible, "Sorry." She didn't look at his face. She had learned that invisibility was the best strategy to avoid problems. But when the elevator closed, she realized she had forgotten her spray bottle inside. Raphael Miller went up to the 22nd floor, thinking about the girl in the elevator. It wasn't the first time he'd seen her. In fact, for a few weeks he had noticed her discreet presence in the corridors, always focused on her work, always with an almost artistic care in how she cleaned each surface. There was something in her posture, in the way she treated even the simplest work with such zeal, that caught his attention. Raphael was a founding partner of Miller and Associates, one of London's most respected management consultancies. At 35, he had built a solid career, helping companies optimize processes and increase profits. His routine was intense: meetings, travel, business dinners, and a never-ending schedule. But lately, he felt a strange emptiness amidst all that hustle. Perhaps it was the separation from the previous year. His marriage to Felicity had lasted 4 years and ended civilly but coldly. She wanted children. He wanted professional growth. She wanted dinners at home. He had business dinners. In the end, they became two polite strangers sharing the same apartment until they decided to also share the division of assets. Now, living alone in a 200-square-meter apartment in Kensington, Raphael had discovered a type of loneliness that all the professional success in the world couldn't fill. That was exactly why he arrived at the office early, to escape the silence of home. When the elevator stopped on the 22nd floor, he saw the spray bottle on the floor and smiled. The cleaner had forgotten it. He picked up the bottle and went back down to the 19th floor. Clara was focused on cleaning the reception windows of a law firm when she heard someone clear their throat behind her. She turned and saw the same man from the elevator, now holding her spray bottle. "I think this is yours," he said, extending the bottle. Clara felt her face flush. "Thank you, sir. Sorry for the trouble." "No trouble at all," Raphael replied, and stood there for a moment as if wanting to say something more. Clara took the spray bottle and went back to work, but she could feel he was still there, watching. She grew nervous. Had she done something wrong? Had she cleaned something poorly? Was he going to complain to her supervisor? "Have you worked here long?" Raphael asked suddenly. Clara stopped cleaning and looked at him confused. No one ever asked her anything. 3 years, sir." "Raphael," he corrected, extending his hand. "Raphael Miller." Clara looked at her own hand, still with the rubber glove stained with cleaning product, and hesitated. Raphael chuckled softly, removed one of the gloves from her hand and shook it anyway. "Clara," she said, her voice almost disappearing. "Nice to meet you, Clara." It was a strange moment. Clara didn't know how to react to this breach of protocol, and Raphael didn't know why he had felt compelled to learn the name of that shy girl who took care of the building's floors as if they were her own home. "Good work," he said, before returning to the elevator. Clara stood there, her heart beating faster than it should, watching the man disappear behind the silver elevator doors. Raphael Miller. He had a name, and he had shaken her hand, and he said she did a good job. For the rest of the day, Clara couldn't get that interaction out of her head. She wasn't used to being seen, much less greeted, by men in suits who clearly belonged to a completely different world from hers. She started noticing the details: the well-cut suit, the expensive-looking watch, the polite way he had spoken to her without showing haste or impatience. In the following days, their encounters became more frequent. Raphael started arriving at the office earlier and invariably crossed paths with Clara in the corridors or the elevator. Their conversations were short, but always polite. He asked how her day was, commented on the weather, sometimes complimented how she had left the lobby organized. Clara began to look forward to these moments. She fixed her hair before leaving home, took more care with her uniform, even bought a cheap lipstick to add some color to her face. Not that she was deluding herself. She knew very well it was just politeness on his part. But it was one of the few good things in her routine, these few minutes of conversation with someone who treated her like a person. One Thursday, Raphael appeared with 2 coffees in his hands. "I thought you might want one," he said, offering one of the cups to Clara. Clara didn't know what to do. "I can't, Mr. Raphael, I'm working." "It's 7 in the morning. The offices haven't even opened yet," he replied. "And it's just coffee." Clara accepted the cup, still not quite understanding what was happening. The coffee was hot and tasted much better than the watery coffee she made at home. "How's your family?" Raphael asked as they drank coffee standing in the empty corridor. "I only have my grandmother," Clara replied. "She's doing well." "And where do you two live?" "Brixton." Raphael nodded as if he already knew. In fact, he had spent the week researching Clara, not invasively, just discreetly asking the doorman, the cleaning company supervisor. He wanted to understand who this young woman was, who had unexpectedly piqued his curiosity. "And what do you dream of doing with your life?" he asked. The question caught Clara by surprise. No one had ever asked about her dreams. "I don't know. I guess maybe be a nurse. I like taking care of people." "Why don't you take a course?" Clara laughed, but without humor. "With what money, Mr. Raphael? I can barely afford my grandmother's medicines." It was at that moment that Raphael understood what was happening to him. It wasn't just curiosity or sympathy. It was something deeper. That young woman, with her disconcerting honesty and silent dignity, was stirring something within him that had long been dormant. In the following days, their conversations deepened. Clara told him about her parents' death, about how her grandmother had worked as a domestic helper her whole life to raise her, about the plans she had to abandon when Joanna began to get sick. Raphael talked about the pressure of work, about his separation, about how he sometimes felt he was living someone else's life. It was a strange friendship, built on 15-minute encounters in the corridor of a commercial building. But for both of them, those few minutes had become the best part of their day. One morning, Clara arrived at work with red eyes. Raphael noticed immediately. "What happened?" he asked. Clara hesitated, but the sincere concern in his eyes made her speak. "My grandmother felt ill last night. I took her to the hospital, but we couldn't get seen. They said it was just a blood pressure crisis, but I'm scared." Raphael felt a tightening in his chest. "Is she okay now?" "She's home, but the medicines are very expensive, and my company's health plan doesn't cover her." At that moment, Raphael made a decision that would change everything. He could no longer pretend that this was just a casual friendship. He could no longer ignore what he was feeling for this woman who faced life with such courage and dignity. "Clara," he said, "I need to talk to you. Can you have lunch with me today?" Clara looked at him in surprise. "Mr. Raphael, Please," he insisted. "It's important." Clara agreed, not quite understanding what was happening, but feeling that something was about to change in her life in a way she couldn't yet comprehend. When they parted that morning, both carried the feeling that their lunch conversation would be a turning point. Raphael, because he had decided to make a proposal that might seem crazy, but made perfect sense to him. Clara, because for the first time, in a long time, she felt that someone truly cared about her and her story. What neither of them imagined was that this lunch would be just the beginning of a transformation that would test all the limits of what they believed was possible between two people from such different worlds, and that the feeling growing between them would be strong enough to face all the judgments, prejudices, and obstacles that life would still place in their path. The restaurant Raphael chose was in Notting Hill, one of those small, cozy places Clara only knew from passing by. When he suggested they meet there at 2 in the afternoon, she said she couldn't leave work in the middle of her shift. Raphael then did something that confused her even more. He called the cleaning company and asked to speak with her supervisor, explaining that he needed Clara for a work meeting. Clara spent the whole morning nervous, not understanding what was happening. She had never had lunch in a real restaurant, much less accompanied by a man like Raphael. She changed out of her uniform into a simple white blouse and her newest pair of jeans, brushed her hair loose, for the first time in months, and applied lipstick with trembling hands. When she arrived at the restaurant, Raphael was already waiting at a table in the back, away from the windows. He had exchanged his suit for a light blue dress shirt and looked younger, more relaxed. He stood up when he saw her arrive and pulled out a chair for her to sit. "Thank you for speaking with my supervisor," Clara said, as soon as she sat down. "But I don't understand why—" "Calm down," Raphael interrupted with a smile. "First, let's eat something. Do you like pasta?" The food arrived and Clara ate slowly, paying attention to each bite. Everything tasted different, more refined than she was used to. Raphael talked about trivial things, the city's movement, the construction on Oxford Street, the warming weather, as if he wanted to put her at ease before getting to the main topic. When they finished eating, he became serious and leaned forward across the table. "Clara, I want to make you a proposal, and I want you to think carefully before answering." Clara felt her stomach churn. "What kind of proposal?" "You said your grandmother needs better medical care and that—" "You dream of studying," he began. "And I live alone in a house too big for just one person. I need someone to take care of the house, someone trustworthy." Clara frowned. "Are you offering me domestic work?" "I'm offering an opportunity," Raphael corrected. "The house has an annex in the back which has been empty for years. You and your grandmother could live there. The salary would be double what you earn now, with a formal contract, health insurance for both of you, and if you want I can pay for a vocational course for you." Clara remained silent for a long moment, processing what she had just heard. It was too good to be true. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would you do this for me?" Raphael hesitated. How to explain that there was something about her that moved him in a way he couldn't understand? How to say that in the last 2 months, those few minutes of morning conversation had become the best part of his day? How to admit that he was falling in love with a woman he barely knew, but who made him feel more alive than he had felt in years? "Because you deserve a chance," he said simply, "and because I know I can trust you." Clara shook her head. "This doesn't make sense. People like you don't do this for people like me without wanting something in return." "What kind of thing do you think I want?" Raphael asked, and there was a seriousness in his tone that made Clara look directly into his eyes for the first time. "I don't know," she replied softly, "but nothing in life is free." Raphael took a deep breath. "Clara, I won't lie to you, I enjoy your company. I like talking to you. You make me laugh, you make me think about things I'd long forgotten. But this has nothing to do with the proposal. If you accept, you will be an employee of my household, with rights, with respect, with privacy. Nothing more than that." Clara fidgeted with her napkin, torn between wanting to accept and fearing she was making the biggest mistake of her life. "I need to talk to my grandmother." "Of course," Raphael agreed. "Take all the time you need. But Clara, the proposal is serious, and the health insurance would immediately cover any treatment your grandmother needed." That night, Clara told her grandmother, Joanna, everything. The old woman listened in silence, asking occasional questions, but mostly observing her granddaughter's expression as she spoke about Raphael. "You like him," Joanna said when Clara finished her story. "Grandma, it's not a question, child. I see it in your eyes. The question is, do you trust him?" Clara thought about the way Raphael spoke to her, how he looked at her, how he had worried about her grandmother's situation. "I think so." "Then we accept," Joanna decided, "not because of the money or the house. We accept because it's been a long time since you've shone like this when you talk about someone." 3 weeks later, Clara and Joanna moved into the annex of Raphael's house in Hampstead. The main house truly was too big for one person. 3 bedrooms, an office, a living room, a dining room, an open-plan kitchen, and a gourmet area that opened onto the garden. The annex had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a small living room, and a kitchen. It was simple, but clean and airy, with new furniture Raphael had arranged to have placed. In the first few days, Clara barely saw Raphael. He left early and returned late, leaving notes with instructions about cleaning and organization. Clara took care of the house as if it were her own, paying attention to every detail, trying to understand his habits through the personal items scattered around the house. She discovered that he read a lot. There were books piled in every room, that he liked to cook but rarely had time. The kitchen was well equipped, but the spices were expired. That he had few close friends, his phone rarely rang, and when it did, it was always about work. That he was organized but not obsessive, that he preferred neutral colors, that he had a collection of old vinyl records he never listened to. Grandma Joanna adapted quickly. The health plan Raphael had provided allowed her to undergo tests she had been postponing for years and discover she needed minor heart surgery. Nothing serious, but it made all the difference in her quality of life. Within 2 weeks, Joanna was more energetic and cheerful than Clara remembered seeing her in years. It was on a Thursday evening that Raphael arrived home earlier than usual and found Clara in the kitchen, preparing his dinner as she always did. She had discovered that he liked simple but well-seasoned food and had dedicated herself to learning new recipes online from the neighborhood library. "Smells good," he said, dropping his briefcase on the counter. I made grilled fish with vegetables, Clara replied without looking at him. She still felt strange when he arrived. The intimacy of their morning conversations at the building had been lost in the formality of their employer-employee relationship. Clara, Raphael said after a moment, can you stop calling me Mr. Raphael? She looked at him surprised. What do you mean? It's just Raphael. And you don't need to hide from me when I come home. This is your home too now. I don't hide, Clara protested. Don't you? Then why do you always find an excuse to go to the annex whenever I get home? Clara didn't know what to answer because he was right. Ever since she moved in, she had felt uncomfortable with the proximity. It was easier to keep her distance, to remember that it was work, that they came from different worlds. Sit here with me, Raphael requested, indicating the kitchen counter. Let's have dinner together. I've already eaten, Clara lied. No, you haven't. Your grandmother told me you have a habit of lying about having eaten when you're nervous. Clara blushed. My grandmother said that? Raphael smiled. Your grandmother is a very interesting lady. She told me many stories about you. During dinner, Raphael talked about his day and asked about Clara's day. It was strange at first, but gradually the conversation flowed as it used to in the building. Clara discovered that Raphael had grown up in a lower middle-class family in Croydon, that he had studied on a scholarship and built everything he had through hard work, that he wasn't the rich playboy she had imagined. Why did you separate? Clara asked suddenly and immediately regretted it. Sorry, it's none of my business. It's okay, Raphael replied. Felicity wanted one thing and I wanted another. In the end, we discovered we didn't even know each other very well. What kind of thing did she want? Family, children, a simpler life. Raphael paused. Things I thought weren't important at the time. And now I think she was right. The silence that followed was loaded with meanings that neither of them dared to verbalize. From that night on, dinners together became routine. Clara discovered that Raphael was funny when he relaxed, that he could tell stories, that he was genuinely interested in what she thought about everything. Raphael discovered that Clara was smarter than he imagined, that she had strong opinions on politics and economics, that she dreamed not only of being a nurse but of opening a community clinic in Brixton one day. Weekends were the best times. Raphael worked less and spent more time at home. He taught Clara how to use the sound system and discovered she had an eclectic musical taste. She taught him how to make chocolate fudge dessert and discovered he had skilled hands in the kitchen. Grandma Joanna always found an excuse to stay in the annex, leaving the two of them alone in the main house. It was on a Saturday night after watching a movie together on the living room sofa that the tension that had been building between them finally came to a head. Clara, Raphael said as the credits began to roll on the screen. Yes, she replied, turning to look at him. They were sitting on opposite ends of the sofa, but there didn't seem to be enough distance. Raphael had taken off his shoes and tucked his legs under him. Clara had her feet tucked under her body, hugging a cushion. Can I ask you something personal? Clara nodded. Have you ever been in a serious relationship? Clara felt her face flush. Why do you want to know? Curiosity. No, she replied softly. I never had time for those things. Time or opportunity? Clara smiled sadly. Both. Raphael moved on the sofa, getting a little closer. And did you wish you had? Everyone does, don't they? Clara replied, avoiding looking directly at him. But it's not for everyone. Why do you think that? Because... Clara hesitated, then decided to be honest. Because men like you aren't truly interested in women like me. And men from my world, well, they want other things. What kind of other things? Women who don't question anything, who accept anything, who don't have their own ambitions. Raphael was silent for a moment, processing what she had said. And what if I told you there's a man truly interested in you? Clara finally looked at him. I'd say you're being kind. And what if I told you I'm not being kind, that I'm being sincere? Clara's heart began to beat faster. Raphael, Clara, from the first day I saw you in the elevator, you haven't left my mind, Raphael said, moving closer. At first I thought it was just sympathy, but it's not. It's much more than that. It can't be, Clara whispered. "We're too different." "We are," Raphael agreed. "So what?" "So what is that it won't work out? You'll get tired of me, or someone will convince you I'm no good, or—" Raphael interrupted Clara's insecurities by placing his hand on her face. "Or nothing. Clara, you are the bravest, most honest, most incredible woman I have ever met, and I am in love with you." Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. "Raphael, I've never what?" "Never been kissed," she confessed, lowering her gaze. "I've never experienced that." "I don't know how." Raphael smiled with infinite tenderness. "Then it's time to change that, don't you think?" He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. But Clara didn't pull away. When his lips touched hers, it was as if the whole world stopped. The kiss was soft, careful, full of a delicacy that made Clara understand for the first time in her life why people made such a fuss about a simple kiss. When they parted, Raphael rested his forehead against hers. "How do you feel?" "Scared," Clara admitted. "And happy, and confused." Raphael chuckled softly. "That's exactly how you should feel." They spent the rest of the night talking, exchanging timid kisses, and discovering each other in a completely new way. When Clara returned to the annex, it was almost midnight, and she felt as if she had discovered a new version of herself. Grandma Joanna was awake, drinking tea in the small living room. "So?" the old woman asked with a mischievous smile. "Grandma," Clara complained, but she was smiling. "That boy is serious, Clara. I see it in the way he looks at you, the way he treats you. And more importantly, I see how you are when you're near him." "I'm scared," Clara confessed. "Scared of what?" "Of dreaming too big, of hurting us, of not being enough for him." Joanna stood up and hugged her granddaughter. "My child, you have always been enough. The problem is that no one ever had the eyes to see it. This Raphael does. Now you need to have the courage to believe it." The following week everything changed between Raphael and Clara. They no longer hid their attraction, no longer pretended it was just a working relationship. Raphael came home eager to see her. Clara put even more effort into dinner, chose her clothes carefully, allowed herself to dream of possibilities that had once seemed impossible. But it was also that week that the first obstacles appeared. Felicity, Raphael's ex-wife, showed up at the house on a Thursday afternoon. Clara was organizing the office when the doorbell rang. She opened the door and found a blonde, elegant woman, in expensive clothes and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be the new employee," Felicity said, walking past Clara as if she were invisible. "Where's Raphael?" "He's at work," Clara replied, closing the door and trying to maintain her composure. "Of course he is," Felicity sighed dramatically. "That man only thinks about work. Can you tell him I'm here? I need to pick up a few things I forgot." Clara didn't know what to do. Raphael had never mentioned that Felicity still had things at the house. She called him. He seemed surprised and a little irritated by the unexpected visit. "Tell her I'll be there in an hour," Raphael instructed. "And Clara, don't let her intimidate you, okay?" But Felicity didn't need much time to make her opinion clear about the situation. While waiting for Raphael to arrive, she made seemingly innocent comments about how the house was different, how some things were out of place, how Raphael always had a soft spot for people in need. "He's done this before, you know," Felicity said as Clara served coffee. "Always helping someone, an ex-secretary, a doorman, a driver. Raphael has this habit of wanting to save everyone." Clara felt every word like a stab, but kept her face neutral. "Mr. Raphael is very kind indeed." "Kind," Felicity repeated with a smile that was almost cruel. "It's an interesting word to define my ex-husband. I'd say he's needy. Since he was little, always needed to feel necessary to someone." When Raphael arrived, the tension in the house was palpable. He greeted Felicity politely but coldly, picked up the things she had come for, and accompanied her to the door. Clara stayed in the kitchen, pretending to be busy but listening to every word of the conversation. "She's pretty," Felicity commented before leaving. "A bit young for you, don't you think? And all that difference. Well, You know how hard it is when worlds are very different." After Felicity left, Raphael looked for Clara in the kitchen. She was washing dishes with more force than necessary, clearly shaken. "Clara, what did she say to you?" "Nothing much," Clara lied, without looking at him. "Clara, look at me." When she finally looked, Raphael saw tears in her eyes. "She said you have a habit of saving people, that you've done this before." Raphael sighed. "And you believe her?" "I don't know," Clara answered honestly. "Maybe it makes sense." "Clara, listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you," Raphael said, holding her face between his hands. "I am not trying to save you. I am in love with you, for who you are, for how you make me feel, for how I see the world when I'm with you. Felicity is trying to plant doubts in your head because she can't accept that I'm happy without her." "But what if she's right?" Clara insisted. "What if you're just confusing gratitude with love? What if—" Raphael interrupted her with a kiss. "What if nothing? Clara, I know what I feel for you. The question is, do you know what you feel for me?" Clara looked at him, at that man who had completely changed her life in a matter of months, and decided to be honest with herself. "I love you," she said, "and it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I'm afraid of losing you." "You won't lose me," Raphael promised, kissing her again. "Not if I can help it." But even as they kissed, both knew that Felicity's visit had been just the first of many obstacles they would still have to face. And that love, however true, was not always enough to overcome all the prejudices and differences that the world insisted on placing between two people. The weeks following Felicity's visit were an emotional roller coaster for Clara and Raphael. On the one hand, they had finally admitted their feelings for each other, which brought a new and frightening intimacy. On the other hand, the ex-wife's venomous words had planted a seed of doubt in Clara's mind that she couldn't completely ignore. Raphael noticed the subtle change in her behavior. Clara remained affectionate and attentive, but there were moments when he caught her observing him with a thoughtful, almost analytical expression, as if she were trying to decipher his true motivations. When he asked what she was thinking, she always deflected or changed the subject. It was on a Friday evening that things came to a turning point. Raphael had arrived home earlier and found Clara in the garden, tending to the plants she had started to cultivate in small pots. She wore a long skirt and a simple white blouse, her hair tied in a low ponytail. The afternoon sun created golden reflections in her brown strands, and Raphael stood there for a moment just watching her, feeling that familiar tightening in his chest. "I need to tell you something," he said, approaching. Clara looked up, immediately alert. She had learned to read Raphael's expressions, and something in his tone of voice worried her. "My partner Edward found out about us," Raphael continued. "I don't know how, but he found out, and he's not happy at all." Clara felt her stomach churn. "What did he say?" "That I'm dangerously mixing personal and professional life, that it could affect my image in the market, that conservative clients might be bothered by—" Raphael hesitated. "By what?" Clara insisted, already knowing the answer. "By the fact that I'm dating my employee," Raphael said, using air quotes. Edward used much less polite words than those. Clara put the pots aside and wiped her hands on her skirt. "And what did you say?" "That my personal life is none of his business, and if he has a problem with you, he can find another partner." "Raphael," Clara exclaimed, "you can't risk your company because of me." "Yes, I can," Raphael replied firmly, "and I will." Clara shook her head. "No, this is exactly what I was afraid of. You're willing to sacrifice everything for me, and that's not normal. That's not love, Raphael. It's what?" he asked, moving closer. "It's you trying to save me, like Felicity said," Clara concluded with tears in her eyes. "And in the process, you're destroying yourself." Raphael held her arms. "Clara, listen. What I feel for you has nothing to do with wanting to save you. And if Edward can't accept that I've chosen to be with the woman I love, then to hell with him. But you built this company alone," Clara protested. "It's your whole life." "No," Raphael corrected. "It was my whole life. Now, my whole life is you." Clara pulled away from him and began pacing back and forth in the garden. "This isn't right, Raphael. It can't be like this. A relationship can't cost everything to one person." "It's not costing everything. It's giving me everything." "You don't understand," Clara said, stopping in front of him. "If I accept that you give up everything for me, I'll feel guilty forever. And if one day this doesn't work out between us, you'll hate me for having lost everything." "That won't happen," Raphael tried to convince her. "You can't guarantee that," Clara retorted. "No one can." The argument was interrupted by the arrival of Grandma Joanna, who had just returned from a doctor's appointment. She immediately noticed the tension between the two and gave her granddaughter a questioning look. "I'll prepare dinner," Clara said quickly, walking past both of them towards the house. Raphael stayed in the garden with Joanna, who sat on the wooden bench he had had installed especially for her. "Trouble in paradise?" the old woman asked. "Your granddaughter is stubborn," Raphael replied, sitting beside her. "It's a family trait," Joanna smiled. "What happened?" Raphael told her about the conversation with Edward and Clara's reaction. Joanna listened in silence, nodding occasionally. "She's scared," Joanna said when he finished. "Scared of what?" "Of being the reason for your ruin. Clara spent her whole life taking care of everyone, sacrificing herself for others. The idea that someone would sacrifice for her, that terrifies her." "But I'm not sacrificing myself," Raphael protested. "Not for you, but for her, yes. Raphael, my granddaughter has never felt worthy of unconditional love. Her parents died when she was a child. I always loved her. But it was a love made of sacrifice, of hard work, of giving things up. She never had a love that didn't cost someone something." Raphael became thoughtful. "How do I make her understand that this is different?" "You don't," Joanna replied. "You show her. Every day. With patience. And most importantly, you don't give up everything for her. You fight for what you two have built together." That night, Raphael made a decision. Instead of confronting Edward or fighting with him, he decided to propose an alteration in the company's structure. If Edward was concerned about the consultancy's image, then Raphael would open a second company, focused on social projects and consultancies for NGOs. This way, he could maintain the partnership with Edward in the original company and have total freedom in the new venture. When he told Clara the plan the next day, she was surprised. "Did you think of this alone?" "With a little help from your grandmother," Raphael admitted. "She made me understand that you're afraid of being blamed for my ruin. So I'm going to prove that you are not my ruin. You are my inspiration." Clara looked at him, with an expression Raphael couldn't decipher. "Raphael, let me finish," he interrupted. "I always wanted to do something with more purpose, but I never had the courage. You gave me that courage. The new company will work on projects that make a real difference in people's lives. And who knows, when you finish your nursing course, we might be able to work together." "Nursing course?" Raphael smiled. "I enrolled you in the vocational course at St. Thomas's School of Nursing. It starts next month, if you want, of course." Clara was speechless for a moment. Then, to Raphael's surprise, she started to cry. "Why are you crying?" he asked, concerned. "Because no one has ever done anything like this for me," Clara sobbed. "No one has ever believed in my dreams like this." Raphael pulled her into a hug. "Then it's time someone did." The nursing course completely changed Clara's routine. 3 times a week she left home at 6 in the morning and only returned late in the afternoon. Raphael adapted his schedule to be home when she arrived, always eager to hear about her classes, her colleagues, everything she was learning. Clara was radiant. She discovered she had a knack for anatomy, that she enjoyed the practical part, that she got along well with patients during her internships. Teachers praised her dedication, and she made friends for the first time in years. She started wearing more colorful clothes, styling her hair differently, talking about future plans with an excitement Raphael loved to see. But it was precisely this new confidence that brought the next challenge. One Thursday, Clara arrived home later than usual, visibly agitated. Raphael was in the makeshift office he had set up in one of the house's rooms, on a video conference with clients, when he heard the door close harder than normal. He excused himself from the meeting and went to look for her. He found Clara in the kitchen, sitting at the table with an envelope in her hands and tears in her eyes. "What happened?" he asked, immediately concerned. Clara looked at him and tried to smile, but couldn't. "I received an offer." "What kind of offer?" "Doctors Without Borders," she said, showing him the envelope. "They want me to join a mission in Africa. 6 months in Senegal, working with refugees. Salary in dollars, all expenses paid, and a letter of recommendation that would open any door for me in international health." Raphael felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "How did they hear about you?" "Dr. Marquez, from the Social Project. He recommended me without telling me. Said he'd never seen anyone with such natural talent for humanitarian work as me." Raphael sat beside her, trying to process the information. "And you want to accept?" Clara remained silent for a long moment. "It's my life's dream, Raphael. Working with Doctors Without Borders has always been an impossible dream for someone like me. And now it's within your reach," Raphael completed. "I don't know what to do," Clara confessed. "It's a unique opportunity, but it would mean leaving you, leaving Grandma, leaving everything we've built." Raphael took her hands. "Clara, look at me. When do you have to respond?" "Next week." "And you want to go?" Clara looked into his eyes and was honest. "Yes, very much. But I also want to stay. I'm torn." Raphael nodded. "Then let's talk about it, calmly. No rush. Let's think of a solution together." But before they could have that conversation, the second blow arrived. On Thursday, Raphael woke, up to his cell phone ringing insistently. It was his lawyer, visibly nervous. "Raphael, did you see the news today?" "What news?" "It's in the London Chronicle's social column, and it's not good at all." Raphael rushed to his laptop and opened the newspaper's website. There it was, in the city's most read social gossip column, a photo of him and Clara leaving a restaurant the previous week. The article's title was, "Elite Businessman Trades Wife for Cleaner from Brixton." The article was cruel and detailed. It told the entire story of their relationship, describing Clara as a young woman of humble origins who knew how to make good use of the opportunity to serve in businessman Raphael Miller's home. It insinuated that Clara had seduced Raphael to achieve a better life, that he was being manipulated by a self-serving and cunning woman. There were even photos of the house where they lived, and information about Clara's work on the Social Project, described as a front activity to hide her true intentions. Even worse, the article cited sources close to the businessman, who confirmed that Raphael changed completely after getting involved with the employee, that he lost important contracts because of the questionable relationship, and that old friends are concerned about the young woman's negative influence. Raphael didn't need to be very smart to know where these sources came from. Edward and John Sterling had found a way to take revenge for his refusal to end the relationship. When Clara woke up and saw the article, she was devastated. Reading about herself described as self-serving and manipulative, seeing her life story exposed in such a cruel way, was a blow that left her completely shaken. "They're saying I'm a gold digger," she said, crying, "that I seduced you for money." "Clara, you—" "No, that's not true," Raphael tried to console her. "But other people don't know," Clara retorted. "Everyone will read this and think I really am a gold digger, that our whole story is a lie." "So what? What matters is what we know." "It does matter," Clara exploded. "It matters, because now you'll always be seen as the man who was tricked by the clever employee, and I'll always be seen as the woman who climbed the social ladder on the back of a rich man." Raphael tried to argue, but Clara was inconsolable. The article had touched on all her deepest insecurities, confirmed all the fears she tried to suppress about being seen as inadequate for him. The situation worsened when the phone started ringing. Journalists wanting interviews, curious people asking indiscreet questions, even clients of Raphael's new company calling to find out if the article's information was true. On Friday, Clara made a decision. "I'm going to accept the Doctors Without Borders offer," she announced during breakfast. Raphael stopped eating. "Because of the article?" "Because of everything," Clara replied. Raphael, this week showed me one thing. As long as I'm with you, there will always be people who will question our motivations. There will always be people who will think I'm with you for personal gain, and that will gradually erode our relationship. Clara, you're reacting impulsively. No, I'm not, she interrupted. I'm being rational. If I go to Africa and build a solid international career, when I come back, no one will be able to question my worth or my intentions. And what if when you come back, I'm no longer here waiting? The question came out harsher than Raphael intended. Clara looked at him with tears in her eyes. If our love is true, it will withstand the distance, she said. And if it's not, better to find out now. Raphael got up from the table, frustrated. Clara, you're running away. You're letting these people win. I'm not running away. I'm protecting myself and protecting you too. I don't need protection. Yes, you do. You need a girlfriend who isn't a source of scandal, who doesn't affect your reputation, who... Clara, stop, Raphael shouted. You know very well I don't care about that. But I do, Clara shouted back. I care because I love you too much to be the reason for your social destruction. The silence that followed was deafening. Both were breathing heavily, consumed by the emotion of the argument. You've already decided, haven't you? Raphael asked finally. Yes, Clara admitted. I'm calling them today and accepting. Raphael nodded, trying not to let despair overflow. And us? What will become of us? I don't know, Clara answered honestly. I hope that in 6 months we can have a conversation about the future, without my background being a problem. That night, Clara made the call. She accepted the Doctors Without Borders offer. She would travel in 2 weeks. Raphael was devastated, but he tried to support her. If that's what she needed to do to feel complete, he wasn't going to stand in her way. But that didn't make the situation any less painful. Grandma Joanna was torn. On one hand, she was proud of her granddaughter for receiving such an important offer. On the other, she saw that Clara was running from something she could face. My child, are you sure you're not making a mistake? She asked on one of the last nights before the trip. I have to try, Grandma, Clara replied. I need to prove to myself that I'm capable of being someone by my own merit. But you've already proven that, dear, every day. Not enough. The last days before the trip were agonizing. Raphael and Clara tried to act normally, but there was a constant tension in the air. They made love desperately, as if wanting to imprint every moment in their memory. They talked about trivial things to avoid discussing the impending separation. On the eve of the trip, Raphael made a decision. He entered the room where Clara was doing her final packing and knelt on the floor. Clara, he said, taking a small box from his pocket. Clara stopped folding clothes and looked at him, her heart pounding. I know it's not the ideal moment, Raphael continued. I know you're leaving tomorrow and that everything is confused. But I need you to know that my feelings are real. I need you to go knowing that when you return, if you want to return, I'll be here waiting. He opened the box, revealing a simple and elegant ring. Clara Santos, will you marry me? Clara began to cry. Raphael. You don't have to answer now, he quickly said. Take the ring, and when you're ready, when you're sure of what you want, you'll give me an answer. Clara took the ring with trembling hands. What if it takes me 6 months to decide? Then I'll wait 6 months. What if it takes a year? I'll wait a year. What if I come back different? What if I come back and discover I've changed, that I want other things? Raphael smiled sadly. Then I'll hope you're happy with those other things. Clara kissed him with passion and despair. I love you. I love you too. More than I imagined it was possible to love someone. That night they made love as if it were the last time, engraving every touch, every whisper, every moment in their memory. The next day, Raphael took Clara to Heathrow Airport. Joanna went along, trying not to cry in front of her granddaughter. At the boarding gate, goodbyes were quick and painful. Take good care of her, Joanna told Raphael before getting on the plane. I always have, Raphael replied. Clara was the last to board. She stopped in front of Raphael and looked him in the eyes. Thank you, she said, for everything. Don't thank me, Raphael corrected. You transformed my life for the better. I'm the one who should be grateful. Clara kissed him one last time and entered the plane without looking back. Raphael stayed at the airport until the plane took off, feeling as if a part of him was leaving too. The first few months were the hardest of Raphael's life. The house seemed empty without Clara, without Joanna, without the familiar sounds of their routine. He threw himself into work, expanded the company, accepted increasingly ambitious projects, but nothing filled the void Clara had left. They spoke via video conference twice a week. Clara was radiant. The work in Senegal was challenging but rewarding. She was learning French, coordinating medical teams, making a real difference in the lives of refugees. She had gained confidence and a global perspective she had never had before. Raphael was happy to see her happy, but he also felt a pang of jealousy. What if she decided that life was better than the life they had together? What if she fell in love with another volunteer? What if she came back only to say she didn't want to marry him? In the 4th month, Clara made a confession during one of their calls. "I received an offer to extend the mission," she said. "Another 6 months." Raphael felt the world spin. "And you're going to accept?" "I don't know," Clara admitted. "The experience has been incredible, but I miss you every day. I miss Grandma, our home, our life." "Clara, you know you can come back whenever you want, don't you?" "I know. But I need to finish what I started. I need to reach the end of these 6 months knowing I fulfilled my commitment." Raphael understood. It was a matter of honor for her. "Then finish it," he said, "and when you come back we'll talk about the future." "Is the ring still in the drawer?" Clara asked. "It is," Raphael smiled, "and it will stay there until you're ready." In the 5th month, something happened that changed everything. Clara was working in a field clinic when a malaria outbreak occurred in the region. For 3 weeks she worked almost non-stop, caring for hundreds of patients in extreme conditions. It was during this period that she had an epiphany. One early morning, while caring for a child who had lost his parents in the epidemic, Clara realized something fundamental. She didn't need to be in Africa to make a difference. She didn't need to be away from Raphael to prove her worth. The proof was in the last 5 months, in how she had adapted, led, grown. But more than that, she realized that all that experience, however rich it was, wasn't worth it if she didn't have someone to share it with. And the person she wanted to share it with was thousands of miles away, waiting for her. That same week, Clara called Raphael with news he didn't expect. "I'm coming back," she said. What do mean? "I'm coming back next week. I'm not extending the mission." Raphael felt his heart race. "Why? Did something happen?" "What happened is I realized something important," Clara replied. "I realized that no matter where I am or what I do, there will always be people who will judge me. And I realized that I can't live my life trying to prove my worth to people who will never accept me anyway." "Clara, let me finish," she interrupted. "I also realized that I love you more than I love any career, no matter how incredible. And that I want to build a life by your side, not far from you." Raphael was crying and didn't even care. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Raphael, will you marry me?" Raphael laughed through his tears. "That was my question to ask. Then answer me." "Yes," Raphael said. "More than anything in the world." "Then get the ring ready because I'm coming home." A week later, Raphael was at Heathrow Airport, nervous as a teenager on a first date. When he saw Clara emerge from arrivals, tanned, thinner, with shorter hair and a different sparkle in her eyes, he was certain he was seeing the most beautiful woman in the world. They kissed right there in the middle of the airport, not caring who was watching. "I missed you," Clara whispered in his ear. "You have no idea how much," Raphael replied. On the way home, Clara talked about the past few months, what she had learned, the people she had met. Raphael talked about the company's expansion, how empty the house had been without her, how Grandma Joanna had been fundamental in keeping him from going crazy with longing. When they arrived home, Joanna was waiting at the door with tears in her eyes and a huge smile on her face. "My girl," she exclaimed, hugging her granddaughter, "how you've grown." It was true. Clara had left as an insecure young woman trying to prove her worth. She returned as a confident woman who knew exactly what she wanted. That night, after dinner, after telling all their stories, after catching up on all their missed time, Raphael and Clara sat in the garden where it had all begun months ago. "So?" Raphael asked, showing the small box. "Can I ask officially now?" Clara smiled. "You can." Raphael knelt on the ground in the same spot where he had knelt months before. "Clara Santos, will you marry me?" "Yes," Clara answered without hesitation, "but with one condition." "What?" "I want our ceremony to be in Brixton, at the church where my grandma always prayed for me. And I want the reception to be at our house with the people who really matter." Raphael smiled. "Perfect. And I have a condition too." "What?" "I want you to keep the surname Santos, Clara Santos Miller." "Why?" "Because I want you to always remember where you came from, what you achieved, who you are. I don't want you to change to adapt to me." Clara kissed him passionately. "That's why I love you." 6 months later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Clara and Raphael were married in the small St. Francis Church in Brixton. The ceremony was simple and moving. Clara wore a simple and elegant dress, Raphael a light suit. Joanna walked her granddaughter down the aisle, crying with happiness. The reception was at their house, in the garden where they had fallen in love. Present were Clara's course colleagues, the social project team, Raphael's new clients, Grandma Joanna's neighbors, and all the true friends they had made along the way. During the reception, Raphael gave a speech that moved everyone. "Clara," he said, holding his wife's hands, "when I met you, I thought I was just being kind to a dedicated employee. I never imagined I was meeting the woman who would completely change my life. You taught me that true love isn't about saving someone or being saved. It's about growing together, supporting each other, and building something greater than either of us could achieve alone." Clara, crying with emotion, replied, "Raphael, you showed me that I deserve to be loved, not despite who I am, but exactly for who I am. And you gave me the courage to become the best version of myself." 2 years later, Clara had founded her own NGO, specializing in community health, in partnership with Raphael's company. They worked together regularly, each in their area but with common goals. Grandma Joanna, now 85 and in robust health, took care of the couple's first grandchild, a boy they had decided to name Gabriel, in honor of the angel who had brought their lives together. One night, as Clara breastfed Gabriel and Raphael read on the sofa beside her, she looked around the house that was now truly theirs and smiled. "What are you thinking about?" Raphael asked, noticing her smile. "How our story began," Clara replied. "Do you remember what you said on the first day we talked in the elevator?" "No," Raphael admitted. "You said I did a good job." Raphael smiled. "And you still do. To this day. And do you remember what I said when you kissed me for the first time?" "You said you had never experienced that," Raphael recalled. "And it was true. I had never truly been loved," Clara said, looking at her son in her arms, and then at her husband. "But now I know what it's like, and it was worth the wait." Raphael got up and kissed her forehead, then his son's forehead. Everything was worth it. Every obstacle, every difficulty, every tear, because it brought us here. Outside, London continued its frantic routine, but inside that house there was peace, love, and the certainty that some encounters are so special that they transform not only 2 lives, but all the lives they touch along the way. Clara had discovered that she never needed to change to deserve love. And Raphael had learned that true success is not measured in closed contracts, but in sincere smiles at the end of the day. They had started as 2 strangers in a commercial building's elevator. They ended as a family, united by a love that had resisted prejudice, distance, and all the traps the world tried to place in their path. And when Gabriel grew up, they would tell him the story of how true love always finds a way, as long as people have enough courage to believe they deserve to be happy.